Today we come together to recognize the 17th anniversary of the September 11 attacks on the United States. Like any significant date in history, most of us remember exactly where we were and what we were doing when we first hearing about the attack on the Twin Towers in New York. We remember how we felt, our first thoughts, and the somberness of our vibrant country over the next several days, weeks, and even months. In that one moment, our lives as we knew it were changed forever. That one moment in time had such powerful impact on our children and future generations to come.
We will now hear from the Chief of the VA Fire Department, Mr. Rob Kirkbride.
The courage of the first in the battle is what guarantees the courage of those who follow. Joe Biden. After 9/11 happened, my Army unit knew we were going to war. Our first sergeant had told us, "Hear me when I tell you this, we are not all coming home." I had the great honor to serve this country in combat operations in Iraq from late 2003 until early 2005. Those that I served with, although not family by blood, are my family nonetheless. They remain in my thoughts each day, and even though our complete story may never be told, and some may never understand, it is my duty to speak of them often to those willing to listen. Today, as we gather to remember 9/11 and the events and loss that have happened since that day, we are joined by 5 of my brothers in arms. Physically, they are gone, but their presence is felt and demarcated by the gold stars on the reserved seats in the audience. They will always have a place. We owe it to those we lost, and their spirit can motivate us to serve those that are still here.
My first awareness of the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks was during my last tour in the Marine Corps. I'd just done a lat move to the counterintelligence in the West, was attending a 4-month CI school in Dam Neck, Virginia, learning all about terrorism and counter-espionage operations. I just spent the previous night completing my anti-terrorism force protection brief that I was giving that day. Just before my brief was to start at 0900 on 9/11, our instructors were abruptly summoned from the room. A few minutes later, they returned, saying nothing, and turned on the television where we saw one of the World Trade Center towers on fire. At first, my classmates and I thought it was part of the class scenario in which we were involved in a simulated counterintelligence operation throughout our class time. We learned it was a real-world incident when the school commander came in and informed us of the attack, telling us it was not a scenario.
I was interrupted in a meeting by a fellow I knew, and he said, "You need to come up to the Chief of Staff's office right away." So I left my colleagues, who in turn all went back to Capitol Hill. When I was up looking at the TV, they were saying that there must have been an accident because a plane had hit one of the World Trade Center towers. Everybody was crowded around the television. People were talking on the phone to New York. What happened? How did this plane hit the tower? How could that have happened? While we're watching the TV, the second plane hit. At that point, everybody knew we were at war.
And so on the morning of September 11, 2001, I was one of 3 firefighters assigned to the Pentagon Heliport Fire Station. This fire station is located on the west side of the Pentagon. It also included the new flight control tower and also would house our brand new $300,000 fire truck. This is an airfield type vehicle that carries water and foam. We're watching the New York City news. One of the announcers said something like, we're not sure if this was a big airplane or a small airplane. It could even be a terrorist attack. And when he said that, I thought, what an outrageous thing to say. In my opinion, what had just happened that's on the news was nothing more than an airplane that had come out of JFK or LaGuardia, and they could not control the aircraft, and it crashed into the tallest building on the East Coast. No sooner had I said that, and the second plane will strike the south side of the South Tower, Tower 2. That would be United Flight 175. Anybody watching this on the news now knows that this is not an accident. This is an intentional act of violence against our country. 10 or 15 feet beyond the front of the fire truck, a flash or something over to my left, I look up, And there is the airplane. This is American Airlines Flight 777. From the time we see the airplane until it hits the building is probably a half a second. Until we see the airplane, we are not aware that it's in front of us. There's no noise or anything until we see the airplane. As soon as we see the airplane, Mark and I are enveloped in this incredibly loud noise. I'm sure it was coming from the engines. It felt like it was coming up out of the ground, and it was certainly bouncing off the building only 50 feet behind us. The noise was so loud that it almost drowned out the sound of the aircraft hitting the building. 185 people died on the morning of September 11, 2001 in Arlington, Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure to be here with all of you. God bless America, and thank you.